40.
Wow, that was a well-spaced clap on my part.
My second one was ever so like a tenth of a second early, but it's okay.
Well, fuck, we need to no. You said it.
It turns out adopting a dog in Seattle right now is like winning the lottery.
Everyone's like, I want a dog. Because they're like, I'm home, I can finally train it.
A couple of my applications came back with the people saying they got like hundreds and hundreds of applications for the same dog. It's basically like they can't process them fast enough, and then also they just have to sort of throw out a dartboard and make sure the application is good, and then which sucks.
No, at least these animals are finding homes.
Totally,
but it does suck to like be like, we want to do this and you can't.
What I'm worried about is I hope that it's not a situation where people go back to work in 6 months, 8 months or whatever and go, oh, this is hard. And then there's a bunch of like 2-year-old dogs up for adoption. That would suck, but hopefully people are better than that. The nice thing, I mean, like I know that I can handle taking a dog to work and stuff. So I'm not worried about it.
Like the Pacific Northwest seems to be better about that stuff, like letting people bring like dogs to work.
Yeah, my office is super dog friendly. Most people there bring their dogs to work. Actually, we are fortunate in that we don't have anybody with allergies that's like on my team. So
yeah. Obviously, I have to worry about that, but.
Tell me about it.
Oh yeah, I was super sick this week, by the way.
Oh yeah,
on Tuesday, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, I had a fever of like 39.2 or something.
Ooh,
I don't even know what that is.
Nice.
No, but it's
like
high.
101.
102.56.
That's bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
Did you get a COVID test?
No, because I didn't have any other symptoms. Like I was very just sniffly and just like it was just a really bad cold. And it's possible you could have had it, but it would have been weird to not have a cough. That definitely would be.
Yeah, it's a respiratory thing. So,
I mean, you can get it and not even have symptoms at all. So it's not like it's impossible, but yeah, that would have been odd.
And I was ripping extreme ass, so I don't know.
Maybe your lungs are connected directly to your ass and not your mouth.
That would explain a lot.
The ghost, it breathes through its ass. Instead of the crunch noise, it just goes.
It's whatever, like you have to fart, but reverse the sound wave, and that's what the ghost breathing sounds like. Oh God.
That would explain a lot from the past week. So.
Maybe Alex is a ghost.
Death Stranding's not even going to have ray tracing on PS5.
If Alex was a ghost, what kind of ghost would he be?
I was just gonna say I've never seen Casper.
Casper's so good.
I played the PS1 Casper game so many times. It was one of the few games I owned for PS1. I didn't have a memory card, so I just had to play it over and over and play the same bullshit.
One of my friends was like, God, my child wanted to watch Casper, like complaining. And I was like, what? Why are you complaining? That's a great movie. And it's so much better to have your kids watching Casper than like Frozen for 400 times. Not because Frozen is bad, but just because it's repetitive and it has songs that are very repetitive.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But if that kid wanted to watch Space Jam, then I'd be like, oh shit, yeah, my kid wants to watch Space Jam.
I think I like Casper more than Space Jam.
Does Space Jam have ghosts?
No, it has aliens.
No, it has aliens, so.
Yeah.
But I also don't like Space Jam as much as most people. I think it's good, and I like it, but I'm not as head over heels for it as most people.
I just like Looney Tunes.
I'm hit or miss on Looney Tunes.
Someone must have edited The Last Dance to be about Space Jam. Like,
that would be very funny. I like my favorite Looney Tunes are the rare old Looney Tunes that are not racist, which that's like going fishing for gold, but I like old Looney Tunes that don't have subtle or overt racial undertones.
Yeah, I was always a fan of like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, as opposed to like the more contemporary Scooby-Doos, because Scooby-Doo, Where Are You was like seemed older, like more 80s or something.
I like all of the Scooby-Doos. My least favorite Scooby-Doo is the one where they're kids. Well, they're always kids, but
a pup named Scooby-Doo.
A pup named Scooby-Doo. That's my least favorite.
I loved a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Scrappy is not my favorite.
Scrappy's not in it. Which one is Scooby-Doo? But he's a puppy. Scrappy is a puppy when Scooby is an adult.
Yeah, but a
pup named Scooby-Doo is the entire gang are children, and it doesn't make any fucking sense because dogs age faster than children.
That's what I'm saying is I thought that Scrappy.
So Scooby is like 30 years old, like in human years by the time the Mystery Machine comes into the picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess when did Scrappy show up?
Oh, he just shows up in like when Scooby's an adult. He shows up whenever. Like he's in What's New Scooby-Doo, or Scooby-Doo, Where Are You at times, or like he's in like the spinoff, like because they did like, hey, here's Sonny and Cher in a Scooby-Doo episode, or here's the Addams Family and Scooby-Doo, or Wacky Races and Scooby-Doo.
I guess he first showed up in the main show in 1978. Yeah.
Or like Shaggy got bit by a werewolf and now he's got a race against Dracula and like the Mummy and the werewolf in like a Wacky Races type competition.
I don't know why that reminded me, but it did. That I was talking with Cheska earlier this week about Dolly Parton. Sure. And how Dolly Parton is pretty fucking rad, and she has no idea who Dolly Parton is. And I was like, I don't really know how to contextualize country singer turned like humanitarian turned amusement park owner.
Yeah, Dolly World is also one of the strangest places in the United States.
It has really good pie.
Doesn't she own a chain of restaurants where it like is like, what if the South won the Civil War or something?
I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Maybe I misunderstood what, like, doesn't she own like a chain of like a theme restaurant that's like
she runs this she owns the Dixie Stampede. That's weird. They changed the name though to the Dolly Parton Stampede, probably because the Dixie Stampede makes it seem like what you're describing. Mm-hmm. The Dolly Parton Stampede is basically medieval times, but for like Civil War era United States.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. This is what I'm thinking.
It's fucking weird. I've been to it, to the one in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. It's very strange. The thing about it, it's not really about how, like, what if the South won? It's weird because there's no political tones to it at all. There's just a red team and a blue team, kind of like how that's the case at medieval times.
Yeah.
And they have like, and they're clearly of that era, but I don't think it's actually supposed to emulate the Civil War. And different teams can win based on like crowd reaction and stuff. The thing about it's actually offensive is the way that they portray Native Americans, but maybe they've fixed that over time.
I feel like Dolly Parton would change that if
I don't think she's always owned it either. So maybe she bought it and made changes. Yeah. And it's not like they were like totally racist caricatures or anything. It's just they portray Native Americans in it, like riding horses around with Native like dress on. And I don't know if they were all Native actors. And I don't remember, because I was so young when I was there, if they have them fight or anything. Like it's definitely a little shaky. Yeah, Dixie Stampede or Dolly Parton Stampede is one of the strangest attractions I've ever seen. There's one near where my grandparents live, so
I appreciate the memes that are like, Dolly Parton could write the Communist Manifesto, but Karl Marx couldn't write 9 to 5.
Yeah. she's an interesting person, that's for sure.
She is. She's really awesome in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has done good work. But yeah, that I was like reading about that restaurant. I was like,
it is extraordinarily.
Excuse me?
In some ways, it's almost more strange than it is offensive. Not that I would not correct anyone who has taken offense at it, because when I went, certainly some of the stuff I saw, what I can remember, should change about it. But yeah, it's just weird that it exists.
Yeah,
because it is 100. I mean, it's 100% medieval times, but with like American 19th century America.
Okay.
To the extent that you could even just like, they could just do medieval times in the building too if they wanted to.
Okay, we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready whenever.
Absolutely.
Got a burp? Do I have to burp?
Anybody got a fart?
Always.
Let's save that one for the podcast. Not gonna get that out before. That's prime podcast material. Hello, and welcome to episode 144 of the Gaming Fyx podcast on this October 24th, 2020. I am your host, back from a week off, Andre Cole, aka your partner's favorite word that you cannot remember the definition for, Andre Cole. I said that already, didn't I? I don't even know.
Wait, is that the word you can't remember?
My name's Andre Cole. No,
is that the word you can't remember the definition for?
Normally, I just leave this up for y'all to answer. But this week, you know what? I'll share my word that I cannot remember the definition of is apocryphal.
Oh, it's like old. It's like
no. It's not.
Well, it's like
it is a story. So this is somewhat appropriate. It is a story that has been passed around that is deemed kind of legitimate, even though it is not.
Oh, it's interesting. I always assumed that it was.
So here's according to Google.
I'm looking.
Let's see, of a story or statement of doubtful authenticity, although widely circulated as being true.
I knew that part, but I was also thinking it was old. I thought the key part there was that it was like an old story. But
I mean,
not,
like, apparently. I think part of that is like apocryphal things are kind of old by nature.
I think it's because of the association with the Bible, because people always talk about the Bible as apocryphal.
Yeah. I came across it in a horror film class where I can't remember what book or what movie we were talking about.
Wait,
but
a horror film class?
Oh, yeah, I took a horror film class too. Yeah,
it was great. It was we watched horror films. At community college. We talked about. Okay, this is the voice of Pat Cotter and Alex. With me today.
Like were you watching like classic horror movies or?
No, we watched all sorts of stuff. We watched like Dracula. We watched let's see what else. We watched Cabin in the Woods.
We watched Dr. Acula.
Yes. We watched Ginger Snaps. We watched
what?
Have you heard of Ginger Snaps?
Yeah,
it's a Canadian Ginger Snaps. My teacher said it is one of the best horror movies ever made. I don't know if I agree with her, but she's one of the best teachers I had in university.
It's good though. I had we watched
If you've not seen Ginger Snaps, you should watch Ginger Snaps.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie
this Halloween season. It's a great movie about the horrors of puberty.
Yeah. We watched let me think. We watched Rosemary's Baby, which I would not subject college kids to now as an adult, but hey, it is a classic. It's a fucked up movie, but it's a classic. We watched Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 70s version. Mine was a horror and science fiction literature class, but it leaned horror.
We watched Candyman.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
That was one of the most eye-opening kind of units, I guess, because we were talking about a lot about Black representation in film and horror film, and just in general, and like how by centering the white, basically you need to put Black people more at the center and not just have them be the villains or not just be the good people. You need to have them in all experiences, and also you need to make whiteness not like the central normal spot in the story, and making whiteness strange, and so make it so it's not the default in the story, to really kind of broach all the preconceived notions that we have about storytelling. And that is like, that unit in particular really changed the way I think about a lot of media.
Yeah, my class was specifically a literature class, but we watched a lot of movies, and it was like as much film. But I don't want to I don't want to allude to where I took the class or who the teacher was. We almost aggressively did not talk about race and ethnicity and culture in horror. So I'm not sure that professor was particularly well equipped to deal with the subject.
I will gladly shout out my professor, Kate Sullivan at Lane Community College, was an awesome teacher. And
sounds like
I hope she's doing well. And I learned so much from her classes, and they really had an impact for the better on me. And
my professor,
film classes are great.
Never did or said anything racist that I remember, but also was basically like a character from a Lovecraft story in real life. Not in that they were racist.
They were like half gorilla, half man.
No, but they were just weird, and they had a very
half fish
way of speaking. They were like really into Southern Gothic.
Okay.
So
I only ever took one film literature class, and it was called Cinema in Hitler's Germany.
Oh, good.
Wow. Yeah.
It was really interesting because it went all the way back to like the Weimar Republic, and like we watched stuff like Metropolis and M and like really old classic German movies, and
Metropolis is a great movie.
Yeah, and how it influenced like kind of German mentalities. So
I took like, as much as I could, I did an English minor in college, and as much as I could, I took film classes. And so I took like maybe more than half of my English classes were film classes. I took gender on film. And one of like the sections we watched parts of, I think we compared and contrasted Tomb Raider with X-Men Origins Wolverine.
What?
And it was like the way that Angelina Jolie was framed in like the intro to the Tomb Raider movie, with the way Hugh Jackman was portrayed with in X-Men, and like how they're both versions of the male gaze.
That's an interesting comparison for sure.
Yeah, it was very, very funny that I was like, I'm taking a university film class and we're watching like the climax of X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is just an abysmally terrible scene with like the shitty Deadpool. And yeah, but it's like, but in this scene, look how they're filming Hugh Jackman and making him look so ripped and cool. And that's supposed to be like a form of male fantasy. It was really something.
If I was setting up a college level film literature class, it would all just be about Terminator 2.
I watched Terminator 1 in a film class in college, blockbusters. We watched Jaws, Star Wars, Terminator 1, E.T.
I like Terminator 1 more than Terminator 2.
Oh, I think Terminator 2 is a perfect film.
They both have merits.
Mm-hmm. It's good. I
think I like Terminator 2 more. But like
I have the same thing with Alien and Aliens.
I mean, it's an Aliens thing where they're different movies.
They're different movies.
One's an action movie, one's a horror movie.
Exactly, and I always like the horror movies more.
It's totally fair.
Welcome to Gaming Fyx.
Yeah,
they make video games about Terminator.
Yeah, also they made a good arcade game
and Alien.
Also, Alien and Terminator both had extreme influences on video games.
Oh, movies in general have extreme
but those
impacted games, especially the games we're going to talk about today.
Especially Terminator, though. Terminator is probably one of the most impactful movies on games that maybe exists, because a lot of video game stuff a lot of video games take a lot from Terminator. Like, I don't think Duke Nukem would even exist without Terminator.
Oh, I don't think Duke Nukem would exist without Army of Darkness.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of more influences on Duke Nukem, but I mean, the character is basically like a rude version of the Terminator.
When did the first Duke Nukem game come out?
Oh, the first Duke Nukem game did not have that
1991,
attitude,
okay. No, I'm just thinking like 1991, so that would be after the first Terminator.
Have y'all
movie.
ever played Duke Nukem 1 and 2? Because they're actually really interesting.
The only Duke Nukem game I've played is Duke Nukem Forever, and it is one of the few games in that time period that I never finished, even though despite owning it.
It's bad. 3D was fine, but 1 and 2 were really interesting. They were side scrollers.
Yeah, I played them a bit. I didn't particularly like them, but yeah, they're kind of like Earthworm Jimmy. I mean, fuck
Earthworm Jimmy.
Kind of. I mean, not exactly, but
Earthworm Jimmy Raynor.
Now we're talking.
Oh man, can you imagine Jimmy Raynor in that armor, but he's just Earthworm Jim inside?
Isn't Earthworm Jim in like some power armor at some point?
He is. That's why I'm just it's easy to picture.
Yeah.
Just Earthworm Jim and Kerrigan rolling around the universe.
Populating planets with their cosmic sex.
StarCraft 2 ended very stupid. Anyways.
I wish I had played it. Oh well. Yeah, video games.
Yeah, video games.
Speaking of the end of video games, Alex, you finished a video game.
I did. Well, I finished half a video game. Yeah, I got to the end of the questions arc of Umineko. And wait, let me pull up Steam. My final count on that was, 68 hours.
Jesus.
Oh my! Didn't you say it was shorter than didn't you say it was like 40? Am I imagining that?
I might have said that and assumed it was that much, but no. But I was sad because it was 68 and not 69.
How much of that was you like diligently playing, and how much of that was like, oh, I gotta like go poop?
There is entirely possible, or it is entirely possible that I just left it idling for like at least half an hour or so.
Yeah.
Like while doing other things.
I often think like, oh, I must have left this game running for a while at some point. But when you actually look at, like, I've compared save times to Steam times, it's not as long as you think it is. I was one time I was like, oh, I've left this game running for 3 hours. And I looked and I actually had only left it running for about 20 minutes. So yeah, I bet that's a pretty accurate count.
Yeah, I would say, like, if anything, it's maybe like 1 hour over at the most, over that 60-something hour playtime. But also playtime is kind of the wrong way to put it, because it is basically a book. Like, it is a visual novel, but it is the classic visual novel in the sense that you are reading. Like, you are not making choices. You are not playing mini games. You are not doing anything like that. You are purely experiencing a story told with words and voice acting and animations and music. So it's basically a souped up actual novel.
Right.
And the story it's telling is buck wild. Like, it starts interesting, and it's like the first chapter, I would say, is very much a murder mystery, like in a classical kind of pulpy way. where they're like making direct references to like Agatha Christie and like some Nancy Drew kind of stuff. But then they very quickly start bringing in like supernatural elements. And so it's basically like a murder mystery and you're looking at like a closed room puzzle basically. But then they're like, okay, but what if the culprit was not human? What kind of capabilities would they have? Like, can you prove that a human did this? Or is the only explanation the supernatural? Like, could it only have been someone using a spell to go through the door, or like to walk through the door and do this crime and then walk out without ever touching the door kind of stuff? And it gets really interesting because it's kind of like Ace Attorney, and the characters like questioning each other and proving or disproving the existence of the supernatural and stuff like that. So it's fascinating. And then it just goes buck wild in the last, let's call it 20 hours, which is a long time, but
the last 20.
That's the last.
It took you longer to play this game than it would have taken you to watch all of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but this is better.
That's true.
I will say, because I started reading this because of the new season of Higurashi implying that there's some kind of connection, or like reading comments of people saying, it seems like there's some very direct stuff to Umineko in here, but without saying what it is. Or they were saying it and hiding it behind spoiler tags, which I did not read. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to know what that is. So, and me being a big fan of Higurashi, I was like, okay, sure, let's do this. There's nothing coming out in October. Let's use this month to go through it. And I will say, without much exaggeration, that this might be one of my favorite pieces of fiction that I've experienced, and I've not made it to the answer arc completely. Like, it's just extremely creative, extremely well written. The combination of music and art and everything is really, really, really effective. And yeah, I have pretty much no complaints about any part of it. I think parts of it are just absolutely genius. So like, yeah, if you are interested in reading a really good book, I would say you should read Umineko. If you're looking for a game, you could probably pass because it's not a game, but like it's just extremely good. And I want to talk about why, but I can't without spoiling like big parts of it.
I think what frustrates me is I really wish that I could read it as a book and that I didn't have to sit at the computer to read it.
I think there is a manga version of it.
Oh, that's interesting. I might look into that then.
Does it cover, because like a lot of things with like the anime, like Steins Gate or these other anime or things that are also visual novels tend to run into is the visual novel just goes so much deeper into these things. And I feel like that's what makes it so appealing, is that it goes so much deeper into this stuff. Do you know if the manga is the exact same content, or?
I am looking right now at the list of chapters of the manga, and they all have the same titles as the chapters of what I'm going through, or the episodes of what I'm going through. I don't know.
And there's no like flowchart stuff. It's just you're experiencing a story.
There is some flowchart stuff, but
okay.
Like, and it's not necessarily like timeline flowchart. It's like relations of characters, who's alive, who's in rooms with other characters, kind of stuff. Like,
also, there's a lot of chapters of this manga. Not a lot. I shouldn't say that. Compared to something like One Piece, it's nothing. But
I'm 860 chapters into One Piece.
Yeah, no, I know. But there's like, there's like 50 or more volumes of this.
That's a lot of volumes, because like volume is like,
yeah, it's on Apple
5
Books,
chapters, 6 chapters.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe I won't have you split. Maybe I'll give the manga a perusal.
I've heard the anime is bad because they just tried to cram way too much into like one season, and the pacing is all over the place.
I'll tell you,
it's just not good.
If you don't want to, if you're like, I wonder what connections might exist between Higurashi and Umineko. You might not want to look at the manga. Oh, no, never mind. I see. Now I'm seeing what's going on here. It's not that there's that many chapters of Umineko. There are, I'm looking at the combination of Umineko and Higurashi manga. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably a lot.
Yes.
The connections that I've run into.
There's 20 Umineko volumes on Apple Books.
That seems more reasonable. Because there's 8 episodes in this, and each episode is probably about 14 to 20 hours.
There's
in terms of actual reading.
There's 8 episodes of the manga too, and each one is 3 volumes long. So,
and it takes you about 5 minutes to read a chapter of a manga. So,
I would say the experience of reading Umineko is 100% worth it. Like, even though it's such a huge time investment, the story is very, very, very good.
Yeah, I think the reason that I say what I do about it is I know that if I'm sitting at my computer, I just I'm not going to have the, if I'm sitting at my computer, then I'm going to be like, oh, I want to be playing a game, So I know that I would probably bounce off of it. Not that I'm saying it's anything wrong with it, but I would struggle with sitting and just reading it. But if I could lay in bed, if I could read, for an hour or so before bed, then I could see getting through some of it.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that it breaks, each episode you can almost consider its own book, if you want to think of it that way. And it's a series of books. So you're reading book 1, book 2, book 3, etc. And it does have what you could consider chapters. So it has natural breakpoints where it'll basically bring up the logo in the corner, being oh, this is kind of a well, it's a cliffhanger, or it's it just did a big info dump and now there's this little mystery that you're left wanting to learn about. But it leaves for natural breakpoints where you can be okay, 30 minutes in, I hit a chapter break, I can hit save and walk away and do something else. So it's been really good for that. It's not just contiguous forever. It does have some natural flow to it.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at as story content, or is it murder mystery? Is it
oh boy,
what kind of story, or broad strokes? What kind of story are we looking at here?
So think. It really does draw direct inspiration from stuff like Agatha Christie, that kind of classical, not classical, but idiosyncratic murder mystery novel kind of thing, where it's fully aware of all of those tropes, and it pretty successfully subverts a lot of them. So it's that kind of mystery, but it's also very much a horror. And rather than it being kind of passive, it's all of these characters that you're getting to know. There's 18 main characters basically, and that cast does grow. 18 characters, and you're getting to know them extremely well, and they're put into pretty just awful scenarios, which are very psychological horror, in a pretty messed up way sometimes. And then so it's mostly mystery, I would say, and then mystery coached in pretty intense horror. So if that's appealing to you, go for it. But also sci-fi, fantasy in some ways.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to, for people who might be interested in checking out Higurashi because of our conversations that we've had, it's definitely very interesting and very much I wouldn't say by the time I finished it, I was well, they didn't actually address the stuff that I wanted to know about. But it didn't feel unsatisfying because it almost felt I wasn't super thrilled with some of the answers that they did provide. And that's a taste thing more than that's not really an objective critical statement. But I like the characters so much that I was kind of I was still on board. I still enjoyed it. And I wonder if maybe it's better that I don't have the answers to the other questions that I had. But I think the premise of Umineko is almost more interesting to me than the premise of Higurashi. And since I came to really enjoy Higurashi for the characters and writing, I'm sure that it would be interesting to experience the story of Umineko. I'm looking too, and for anyone else asking the same question that I am, it's a bad idea to ask visual novel fans if you should read the manga or play the game, because the response is always like, well, if you want the whole story, you have to play the game.
Yeah, there is a bit of elitism there.
It doesn't come off as like rude or anything in this Reddit thread that I'm looking at, but people are like, well, you should play the visual novel, but then also saying, but the manga is good. And the manga is like, it looks like I'm seeing some stuff like there's a My Anime List post saying that the manga is one of the most faithful adaptations of a visual novel. So
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm gonna check that out.
That just blows me away, because in my, like, there are things you can do with a visual novel, like with the Steins Gate stuff, where it's got multiple timelines, multiple stories, and like flowcharts and stuff. You can like tell a succinct story, but then you can do that in a manga, but then use a visual novel to explore more stuff. But you could also just take like a linear story, like say a Danganronpa, which is a very linear story, which has like some minor, like, oh, I spent time with this person in the middle, but then just make that a manga and it tells the exact same story minus like the shitty mini games in the middle. Yeah. But it's just so interesting to me that the like why one or the other gets more love, or like, I don't know. Visual novels are a weird, like visual novels that are just straight story that don't do something interesting, like a 999 with like the flowchart stuff and the different timelines. It's like a weird thing where it's like, why is this a game and not a novel? And I think there's something there with like production. In some ways, it's easier to make a visual novel than it is to write and produce and like distribute a manga. Like you do it online, of course, but like for mass production and like selling it, it's easier to do in like a visual novel format as opposed to like selling a book.
And I would say that this one, like, I haven't read the manga, so I can't say, but I think as a novel, this would not be nearly as effective, because the combination of music and like extremely good voice acting, like the voice acting is spectacular.
That's what some people are saying about why you should play it as a visual novel rather than read it as a manga, is because you lose the voice acting and music when you're just reading it. Yeah,
like the voice acting, I cannot emphasize enough, is fucking amazing. Like it's maybe some of the best voice acting I've heard in like fiction. Again, like I'm speaking very highly of that, and almost like in hyperbole, but I think it's actually pretty honest.
Is it a dub or is it dubbed, or is it Japanese acting?
All in Japanese.
Okay.
English words, but all in Japanese. But the voice acting is insanely good. So like the combination of that with like, it has the soundtrack, the OST has like over 200 tracks, and all of them are really, really good. Like you couldn't do that with just a book, and it has some really vivid art in the mod that I'm using, because the original game has kind of the ham hands style art, which is not great, but the mod is coming from like the PS3 version, which has like really, really amazing art and super high production values. So it is kind of like Higurashi. If you've ever watched the show, season 1 is basically your questions arc, where it's just, you're kind of along for the ride and you are looking at everything and you're like, you're basically making up a bunch of theories in your mind. Being like, okay, how is this connected? Wait, what does that mean? Blah, 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 blah. And the second arc, which is what I'm getting into soon, is what strives to answer those questions. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, basically all the answers have been there the whole time. Like you've had all the tools to work with. Like if you sat down and looked at it, you could probably figure out the mystery ahead of time, basically. But it will do it in a really spectacular way. So I'm starting to get into that probably after we record this.
I do appreciate a story like that where you can kind of like start to piece together stuff and be like, wait a second, I think I know what's going on here. And even if you do know what's going on, the way like you see it unfold before you is maybe like you kind of see what's going on, but you're like 3 layers removed from like the full truth. And so you just see things like unfold and you're like, oh no, I was totally wrong. But then like another layer unfolds. You're like, I was right. Oh my God.
Oh,
and that's
has
what's great about like Danganronpa and stuff like that.
This has an intense amount of layers, by the way.
Yeah, I would say that Higurashi definitely does that thing too. My reaction to it was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, cool. This is interesting. Oh, they're teasing at some interesting stuff here. And I was like, oh, okay. This is starting to make sense. And by the time everything was kind of laid out, I was like, oh, all right, that's a little less cool than what I had in mind. But it's also, again, that's a taste thing. And that's a me going, I would have liked it more if they had done the thing that I thought they should have done. But that's not really a condemnation at all of the show. And I think if you like that kind of storytelling, it's totally worth checking out. Because it's like it's very interesting the way that they piece everything together.
Okay, Pat, take your headphones off for about 20 seconds. I'll give you a thumbs up.
Okay.
This thing, at one point, it kind of turns into a mecha thing, and it also kind of turns into a Dragon Ball thing, and like it kind of goes like superhero-y, but like in a sense of like these people might have powers that are fucking crazy and are like just blowing people apart, and it's just like, wait, what is going on? What is happening here? What? Like it turns into Pacific Rim in a way. Like,
Alex, I'm drunk. You can't take advantage of me like this.
I'm not lying. There is a part where like multiple characters basically share a consciousness, and yeah, it's fucking crazy.
They're drift compatible?
Basically. And we have Pat again, so I won't say anything more, but it's yeah. Umineko is extremely good, and I'm super looking forward to getting into the Answers arc. So I imagine that's going to be another 60 hours, so I'll see you in like 3 weeks with that.
Well, what, you were at 68 on this one?
Somewhere around there, almost 69.
We can only hope that the Answers arc is 69 hours.
Yeah. It needs to be 70 hours so that
or
you
420.
Can... But, oh, God. That's like my Modern Warfare numbers.
Nice. Well, I don't know how to. Okay. This next one,
we have a weird hodgepodge of
So let's talk about games. We'll talk about Phasmophobia, and then we can talk about Amnesia afterwards. Because there's like it's I don't know if you know, because
it's spooky month.
It's impossible to tell time now. It's October, which means it's Halloween, which is when the spooky stuff happens. Yeah. So we've been playing some spooky games. Did you talk about this last week? I wasn't here.
No, I hadn't played it yet. I played it for the first time last Saturday night. I was playing games with my buds who I play Modern Warfare with. We had gotten to the level in the Cold War beta that was relevant for unlocking stuff. So we were like, okay, we're good. We're excited about this. Gonna wait for it to come out. I've been playing a lot of Dead by Daylight, which I did talk about last week. And they were like, oh yeah, we'll play Dead by Daylight. And they really didn't like it. Which fair. I mean, it's when you're playing as a survivor, it's pretty brutal. You die and then you're out until the game is done, which is fine when you're solo because you can just queue again. But when you're with a group, it's kind of shitty to be the first one to die and have to wait 15 minutes for the game to end. Anyway, they weren't crazy about that. So one of them said, what's Phasmophobia? And I really had wanted to play it, but I didn't even try floating it to them because it didn't seem like the kind of game that would mesh with that group. But we ended up getting it and really enjoying it. And then we played Andre and friend of the show, Jeff Davis, and I played last night.
Awesome. And Brock too, right? Or was that a separate session?
Separate session. I played with some damage boost folks, including Brock as well. a little earlier on, and we streamed both of them, so you can go to the Damage Boost Twitch page and the Fyx Twitch page, and the videos should still be there. There's some stuff I need to clip out because there were a few funny moments. I really wish I could have had your perspective on a couple of moments, but
so Phasmophobia is a first-person ghost hunting game, like Ghost Hunters, the TV show, where you've got EMF readers and like UV lights and thermometers, and you're going into like haunted buildings and searching for ghosts. And it's made by like mostly one person, and it's in early access, so it's janky, and the animations are just cripplingly funny.
They're very funny, like, when
oh my god. So like the people's animations are the funniest thing I have seen this year. Like I don't even know what's causing it. Like, is it crouching? Is people bend over just like 90 degrees at the waist? Or Pat was doing this thing where he was bent over like Neo in the Matrix, and then was like crouching his legs, and it was just like, so bent over 90 degrees at like backwards, and then crouching up and down, and it was just so like through the wall of like our truck. And
when you sounds lovely.
When you play the game, when you're actually playing the part where you're like doing the ghost hunting, the animations are still janky, but you don't notice them as being funny as much. But certainly if you stop and just do what you can, because all of the movement is very, very slow too, including
so slow. Even
like looking around is pretty swimmy and slow, but it's all for a purpose. And so to kind of get back, like it's a ghost hunting game, and the general structure is you pick a mission to do. So right now there are 4 different kinds of maps. There's like a ranch house, a farmhouse, you have a suburban home, you have a school, and then there's like a asylum. And I haven't done the asylum map.
There's a few layouts of like the suburban and the ranch house.
Yep.
I don't know about the school.
The school I think is the same all the time. So you're picking a mission, and then you are collecting your equipment beforehand, like what you think you might need to bring. And it's a fairly large list of gear. Like there's the obvious stuff that Andre mentioned, but then there's also like smudge sticks and candles and glow sticks that you can bring, and all kinds of different like little
motion sensors,
sound sensors. Yeah, you could absolutely have a rave. Cool. The ghosts will make the lights flicker and stuff. It's perfect. So then you kind of like you set your gear up, and then you go into the mission, and you're given a set of objectives. The one that is always constant is trying to figure out what kind of ghost it is. There are like,
and get a picture. Right? Is that part of it, or sometimes it's just extra?
Yeah, pictures of supernatural stuff is always worth money. Sometimes you do get an objective to take specific pictures, but if you don't have the objective, you can still take pictures to make money. If you have the objective, you get the money for the picture and the money for completing an objective, and you're using that money to buy new gear. But anyway, you're given the name of a ghost, and you're told whether it reacts to groups or people that are by themselves. And from there, you're kind of the phases sort of are, you're walking around the spooky space trying to figure out what room the ghost is in. And then you're setting up your equipment to try to gather evidence to determine what kind of ghost it is based on what sort of things it responds to. That's how you figure out what kind of ghost it is. And then
does it write in the ghost book? Does it leave fingerprints? Is it cold?
Yeah, right. Does it respond on the spirit box, which is like a little radio when you ask it questions? And then from there, you're kind of like,
does it have the rule of 9s?
No.
I don't know if anyone in this
not yet.
Will get it.
Not yet. We'll see. It's very early access, so I'm hoping they add a lot of cool stuff. But so then you're kind of like you're recording this data and then, you know, trying to antagonize it to get it to show up so you can snap photos of it and stuff. And at the end of the day, it's a fairly repetitive, simple loop. You're kind of doing the same stuff every mission, and the maps start to get a little repetitive as well. But it kind of randomizes the ghost appearance and type when you load into a map. So it's not the same thing every time. There's a limited number of appearances that it could be, but there still are like, I think I've seen like 10 different visual styles of ghost at this point, and I've only seen it repeat a couple of times.
And the second ghost we ran into when you were playing with Jeff and I, after you had been playing this game already for a while, you were like, what did you see?
Yeah, absolutely.
You were just like, I was like, I just saw like this black thing and it had a tentacle arm, I think. And you're like, excuse me?
Yeah.
So for clarity, the voice chat that you're talking about is all in game. It's all proximity based.
So
it's like it encourages you not to use things like Discord, right?
Yeah, in fact, it's because it's janky right now. It will not work if you have Discord open.
That's a good way to
that's. I don't think it's on purpose though. That's the case. I believe that's a bug.
But part of it is like you're supposed to use the in-game chat to interact with the ghost and like provoke it. Yes. To get it to do stuff, or it interact with like the talk box or the spirit box.
Yeah, and so what they've done with the voice chat is kind of core to the experience, because you have a proximity voice chat where you can just talk and people around you hear you. You can set on push to talk. I like to leave it off for that. And then you have a radio where you can push to talk, and you have to push to talk for that, where you're talking over the radio to everyone. And the radio is very staticky. Sometimes it's hard to understand what people are saying through the radio. Not like super hard, but and then you're getting like the like kind of echo in different spaces, and they do a really good job with the proximity voice chat where it'll be like, you know, the house is totally quiet. There's this ominous like hum all the time. But I'll be in like the living room of a house trying to scan for temperatures, going like, Ruth Miller, are you here? Ruth Miller, can you hear me? And then you can just hear someone like in another part of the house. You can hear Andre going like, Ruth Miller, or give us a sign, Ruth Miller. Because it's like muffled going through the house, and it's very cool. And it gives you as someone who used to be a fairly active believer in this stuff, who has grown more skeptical over time, it's very much what it's like when you do this in real life. Like, I have tried to do this with people before, and it has the same feel of like, wow, I feel kind of ridiculous right now. But the difference here is that it's a video game, so it's safe, and it's
stuff happens.
You know that stuff's going to happen. Yeah.
It sounds like with that stuff in mind, it sounds like it actually has a real sense of place. Like it is occurring in a real environment kind of thing, which is really cool.
Yeah, it definitely grounds that. And that's where some of the like slow movement, even though it's very slow, fits. In real life,
feels very silly when you're like, I just saw a ghost with a big axe or like a big like cleaver, and I'm just gonna slowly walk out of this house. It's very
yes, that stuff is a little silly, because I think they're trying to find a balance so that you can't just, if you could just sprint through the house, it wouldn't work.
The audacity to call the shift button the sprint button.
Yes, when it gives you like a 0.2%.
It's like a 10% speed boost.
And you just always hold it down because there's no stamina system or anything. And it moves very slow. But so much of that game is spent standing around in small spaces trying to like answer things, that the fact that you move slowly mostly comes into play when you're trying to escape a ghost, because one thing to note is every ghost can kill you. And will try eventually if you stay long enough.
There are no friendly ghosts.
No.
No Casper yet.
And so that's kind of like eventually the ghosts will start hunting people, and then you kind of need to get out of the house because it will lock the door on you and then start killing people. And if there's not somebody outside, you either have to survive the hunt, like you have to wait it out and survive, or somebody outside has to unlock the door for you to get you out.
The ghost traps you in this terrible flesh prison.
Yeah, when you die, it's really unsettling because it's like hands go around the edges of the screen.
I died twice in my experience, and boy, is it!
It's not pleasant to die. Because
have either of you played it in VR?
No, I don't think I want to do that.
I don't think it would be very fun.
Yeah, I don't think it would make it more fun. It would just make it more stressful.
Yeah, I think like it would be kind of tedious.
Yeah.
Because there's like enough like weird kind of quirks to it, to the way it works, where like you have to bend over a lot, and like, and you're I don't even know if it would work with like the controllers. So if you have to be at your like desk and like doing keyboard and stuff,
it works with controllers. I've seen some people streaming with it.
Okay.
I think you can use the touch controllers with the tools.
Okay.
It's something I might try at some point. I think it would make me pretty, I don't know. So one of the things that it does, there's a couple things that I want to touch on before we move off of it, which one is, I think if you've always been interested in playing horror games, but you're afraid to do it, and you have friends who you can play this with, it's a really, really, really good way to check that kind of out, because since you're playing with friends, it doesn't have the same level of dread as, like, for example, Amnesia. You don't feel alone. There's times when you kind of do, because sometimes you have to be alone for the ghost to respond to you. Yeah. But even then, you can kind of cheese it, and someone can kind of stand in the hallway outside of the room and stuff. And the moments when the only times when you really feel alone are if you're like if you happen to be like the only person in the house and the door shuts on you and stuff. And those moments are scary, but they're not constant, or even particularly frequent. And most of the scares happen when you're with other people. And it's also not really designed to be a jump scare game. There certainly are, like, the ghosts will like pop up and stuff, but it doesn't do things like, you're walking through the dark and then the ghost like screams and grabs the camera or whatever. It doesn't have like Five Nights at Freddy's style.
And I hope they don't add something like that as the early access goes on.
I hope not. And I also don't get the impression that they would, because it just doesn't fit that. It feels very social. It feels very much like you're hanging out. I do actually wish that they would add a option to just do, like, maybe for like no money or something, just like, hey, this is going to be a friendly ghost. This is going to be like a non-violent spirit, because it would be fun to just be able to chill out in the space and get all the spooky stuff to happen without having to be concerned about dying. That would get old faster, I think, because then there's not really a like element of danger at all. There's no risk reward.
Like, how many ghosts can you fit into this building?
Yeah. I think that would also
casual mode wouldn't be the worst.
I think it would also be interesting if they did like a multi-ghost thing too, because right now there's just one ghost at a time.
But again, it's early access, so who knows what's going to happen and get added.
And it only came out in early access like a month and a half ago. So, and it's one person for the most part again. Yeah. So
I imagine this game will come back into the discourse like a year from now.
Hopefully, I would hope that they sold enough copies from the Twitch boom. I mean, sometimes I've been in the servers and there'll be like 4,000 public rooms, which is crazy.
And like I saw like 55,000 people watching when we were playing earlier on Twitch. So
not our channel, but like
but on the front page it was like 55,000 people watching Phasmophobia.
Yeah,
and
so
that's
which is really cool.
It's no small amount for an early access game.
And to close, the thing that I would say to try to really sell it to people who might have a group to try it with, I definitely think you want to play with friends. I don't think it works very well with would work very well with strangers. But you might be able to put groups together in their Discord that are cool. You need people who are fairly chill though, because like
you need like-minded people.
I've even a couple of times when I was playing with like the not at all to pick on them, but like when I was playing with the Damage Ruse people or when I was playing with my Modern Warfare friends, some of the language used to try to antagonize the spirit, I was like, yeah, I wouldn't say that. But although I did say last week when I was playing with friends, the thing that finally got the ghost to come out and attack me was when I yelled, "Kenneth Miller, suck my dick," which is not vernacular that I commonly.
That ghost said, Kenneth Miller said, "Don't mind if I do."
Yeah, it's not my common parlance, but it was very funny that was what finally drew that ghost out. Anyway, you definitely want like-minded people because it can go kind of bad, and also you could fuck with each other really bad. Using the voice chat and using mechanics,
or so we got to a point where we're like, okay, we're nearing the end of this, but we just need to get a picture of the ghost, and we're worried about the door closing, and like the room that the ghost was in was right next to the front door, so I'm like, I'll just go wait outside, I'll wait at the door, and I waited out the door for like a minute, and then I shut it. And they're like, "Oh shit!"
Yes, and that was
so
funny.
They thought the door was locked by the ghost
because that was a very light fucking with people moment, and when we weren't constantly doing it to each other. So that was a funny one. I think. I mean, because
you could easily be like real mean or like annoying about it.
The game relies on sound so much too. So if you just made weird noises into your microphone, it would freak your friends out. And so like. And sometimes I did that by mistake because I like sometimes when I'm like scared, I make a weird noise. And so you do have to have people. I even saw some people saying that like their friends would learn how to hack it and then spawn like 10 ghosts and stuff. And would be a horribly bad time. Just not even just from scariness. It would just be bad mechanically. So
not balanced.
Yeah. So anyway, you definitely want to play with like-minded people. If you do that, though, the final thing that I think this game does that makes me really like it so much is this is the game that I've played that most emulates the feel of playing a like tabletop role-playing game, in the sense that you are actually like acting to a degree, not trying to play it up for performance or anything. I wasn't like hamming it up for a stream last night, but because the game forces you to walk around a house and say, "Kenneth Miller, show yourself. Kenneth Miller, where are you?" You kind of naturally give yourself over a little bit to the thing that it's doing. And I find that it's a really good tool for doing like social storytelling that's rooted in cooperation instead of like deception. Like Among Us does a similar thing, but it's doing it to make you compete with each other to a degree, or to like trick each other. And so I think it's an interesting tool for that. And even though the game, if you played this as like a single player horror game, it would scare you at times, but it would be pretty boring and repetitive. It's not like the game mechanically is super deep, but when you put people together in it, I mean, I played it last night for almost like over 4 hours and had a really good time the whole time. I would have continued to play after we did. Like it was pretty late in Jeff's time when we stopped. But I could definitely play that game for hours, because every time you load up a new map, you're getting there's a new possibility space for having fun, like social interactions happen, even if you're doing the same thing over and over. So yeah, it's highly, highly, highly recommended, I think, if you can get the right experience.
As a like mechanically as a game, it's like pretty thin, like we talked about. Like there's interesting interactions there, but because it's multiplayer, and if you find the right group to play with, the most fun about that was the stories and like the personalities we assigned to the ghosts. Like was it Susan Moore, who was the teacher who like in the school, where we went into the classroom and there's just all these disparate textbooks, like there's physics and Russian and geography and math, and we're just like, well, now we know why Susan Moore is so pissed and haunting this place. She had to teach all these like different subjects at this high school, in this one classroom or whatever, and or like John Davis, whereas like, oh my god, it's John Davis, the creator of Garfield, forgetting that Jim Davis is the actual name. So now I'm just like, the entire time I'm just like, oh, John Davis couldn't even write Garfield if he wanted to.
Yeah,
he's such a shitty ghost, trying to antagonize the ghost, and like that stuff was where the real like joy of playing Phasmophobia came from.
It sounds like pure distilled emergent gameplay.
Yeah, very much. Even though the mechanics are not as sandboxy as what you would expect for that, but it does do that, and I think it does it pretty well. And I have now had multiple times, and it doesn't get old, or at least in the few times I've had it happen, when you're outside in the van watching the cameras, trying to see ghost orbs or trying to see just trying to provide a view of what's going on, and suddenly you're talking to people and then you hear them go, oh god, and then they cut out and you're like jamming the radio key like hello, and then you look outside the van and you notice the front door is closed and you're like, oh shit. and then you run to the front door and open the front door and you find Andre's dead body at the threshold.
Yep. That's always taking pictures of people's dead body. We got one of Pat floating off the ground, bent 90 degrees of the torso, head sticking through the door as we were running out of a house. I got there's no there's no collision, so we were running out of a house and I was inside of Pat, and this just added to the nightmare where I was just seeing the eyeballs and the teeth from behind with no other textures. Oh god,
perfect. I love it.
So
do you know
if something?
Do you know if the developer has any kind of roadmap for stuff that they're going to add, or is it just kind of just is what it is for now and then it'll get updates randomly?
I think they are a little overwhelmed at the response that the game kind of got, which is understandable. If you look at the Steam page, the last news update was from a month ago, but there has been continued work on it. They've pushed a couple of updates. And if you do get it, you should really get on the beta branch of the game. That's got a lot of fixes for audio problems and stuff.
Cool.
So the updates, I wouldn't say they've been super frequent, but there's been at least one this past week, which is for a single team is good, or a single person team. And I don't think they have a roadmap laid out or anything, but I wonder if that might be something they're working on now that it has such a huge response.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, it's a cool thing, and if you have people to play with, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, it looks like right now too there are 7 maps, so I think there's probably 3 suburban houses, an asylum, 2 ranch houses, and a school.
Yeah, so the only one we didn't play yesterday was the asylum. That's the only one I haven't seen. But all right, well, not quite an asylum, but just as spooky, if not more so. You've been exploring an old castle. Yeah. So I descending into one, if you will.
Yes. I didn't realize that the new Amnesia was out this month until about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And
I didn't realize there was going to be a new Amnesia until this month.
I had heard about it, and I had been kind of looking at trailers here and there and was interested, but I thought it was much further off. And initially I was just going to play it. Patrick Klepek of Waypoint was saying that you can just jump into it. But then I saw some forum chatter that was like, well, it does have connections and you really should know what happened in the first 2 games. And I had never finished The Dark Descent, and I've never played Machine for Pigs, which I know people have mixed feelings on. I'm still going to try it because play through it because I know it's short. And the things people complain about actually sound interesting to me. So I'd like to see it. Anyway, but when Dark Descent came out, I was very much in a place of I like horror literature and I like some horror films, but I wasn't the kind of person that would sit down by myself to watch a horror movie. And I was not the kind of person that would play horror games. I had tried to play Silent Hill and it scared the shit out of me to the extent that I just had to put it down. So Dark Descent seemed really interesting to me because it was an interesting kind of more socially progressive look at some of the eldritchy horror stuff that I really like from literature. And I always wanted to play it. And then eventually my then friend and I decided we both wanted to play it. So we put our 2 desktop computers on a kitchen table when we were in college. Like, he came over to my apartment and we set up across from each other so we couldn't see each other's screens, but we were like in the same room. And I drank like a third of a bottle of whiskey and was like, all right, we're going to play this game. And I got through about half of it, but you know, it's like it's an 8 to 10 hour game. So, and I wasn't using a guide back then. So after about 4 hours, we were both like drunk and tired basically. And then we didn't play the rest of that game that way. And I never went back to it. So I wanted to see the story and I grabbed a guide and have been playing through it. And I'm over halfway through it. I think I'll finish it today. Because I'm using a guide, it cuts the time down extensively because most of the time spent in that game is wandering around looking for stuff. And using a guide, it'll say like, go in the room on your right, pick these things up, go in the room on your left, pick these things up, turn right. There's an enemy here. Be careful. And it definitely, I think, makes the scares less impactful, but I'm still really enjoying the level design, the character design, the storytelling. I think that game was way ahead of its time in a lot of ways. And it's been pretty clear to see why it had the impact that it had, because it's really, really well made from like a lot of different perspectives. I don't even necessarily have a lot of complaints. I think maybe some of the puzzles and navigation would feel more obtuse were I not using a guide, but it's a great game.
I think that's part of the appeal and what made it so terrifying is because you didn't know what to do, and you know, you're fumbling your way through this thing and you're like, oh God, where am I going? What am I looking for? As this creature that you can't fight against is chasing you down, and you're like, okay, I'm going to hide in this room in a dark corner, turn off my lantern as this thing walks down the hallway. Like there are certain parts of that game that like I can clearly remember, even if I couldn't remember exactly where to go, just like the experience of being stuck in like the kitchen area, or when you first meet, I think, Sebastian, the water monster, or stuff like that is just so like clearly ingrained in my mind, even from playing the game a decade ago, because of how like you didn't know like how much you had to kind of experiment. And part of that was to the game's detriment, because like you would have to play certain parts over again because like you died because you fucked up because you didn't know what to do, which always is a horror, like an issue with horror games where if you don't know what to do and you have to like replay a thing, it suddenly loses a lot of impact. But that was like playing with a guide, I think takes away, and you know, play games however you want, but it takes away some of that tension.
Yes.
And why the game felt so scary.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, because you are experimenting, you're trying to figure out these puzzles, which a lot of the time they were obtuse, I would say. And like there's just that looming threat. Like even if there wasn't a monster around, even if even if you weren't actually directly under threat at that time, there was always the possibility. And that's what made it so tense. Like I also finished it 10 years ago. I have the same style of memories. It's
like Alien Isolation kind of did a really good continuation of that idea.
And like games like Outlast and stuff like that. Yeah, totally.
I picked up Alien Isolation in a Steam sale. I want to play that without a guide because I love Alien so much. So I think that'll be fun at some point.
I can't play that game
because it's scary.
Yeah, it stresses me. Even like, so I played like, I don't know, 4 hours of it. It's like a 20-hour game, which it's like everyone has said it's too long, but I've played like maybe like 4 hours into it at most. And I know like when the alien shows up, and I replayed some of it earlier this year. I didn't even get that far, but I was still just like, man, it sounds like the alien's here. What if it shows up early? So it does the atmosphere incredibly well.
Yeah, which is awesome. I think the thing with Amnesia that I will say has, for the most part, I think it's aged very well. And again, even playing with a guide, it's easy to see the parts of it that would be super, super tense. There's a couple of sections like the prison, which seems like it would be a nightmare, both scary way and just not fun to deal with, because it's got so many winding paths and cells and stuff that you can get lost in, that I could see it being very frustrating. So I think in some ways playing with a guide makes it less that, but the thing that has perhaps not aged particularly well is, even without a guide, you can kind of piece together when you're going to be like safe at this point, just because game design has moved to you can kind of pick apart some of its mechanical stuff. Like early on, I was attacked at one point and I was like just going to let the thing kill me. It was like one of the first enemy encounters too. I was just going to let the thing kill me so I could reload. And then it's just stood there. Like it hit me once and then it just kind of stood there, because it gives you a good long window to try to get away. It wasn't like broken. It just was giving me like multiple seconds before it was going to attack me again. And so I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to run. I'm trying to get out anyway. I'm going to just run and see if I can get to the door. And so I ran, I got to the door, and it didn't go through the door behind me. It was like a hard load back to the hub area. And then I was like, oh, well, they can't chase you between areas. Yeah. So that means if I go into an area and it's a lot of the puzzle solving places are sort of smaller areas where there's just like kind of junk laying around that you have to use to solve physics puzzles. So I was like, well, if I look around and there's no enemies, I know I'm probably safe until I solve the puzzle at least. And that sort of even without a guide, that sort of takes off, because the guide doesn't say like when you're safe. It will tell you, hey, there's a monster there, but it doesn't tell you when you're safe, and doesn't always tell you where there's monsters either. So I think that to an extent was like, I don't know. It's that's the only part of it that maybe hasn't aged incredibly well, but it's been had a very minimal impact on the experience. Overall, it's been really good. And the story in that game is really interesting. That's what I was not expecting. It's fairly thin. It's not like it's very complex, but it's interesting.
I barely remember it, honestly.
It's just kind of about this character and how they found this artifact in the desert and how it's been like haunting them. And now there's this guy in this castle that can like help them solve the mystery of it. So it's pretty simple, like kind of gothic-y horror stuff. It's not super complex, but it's very fun to see where it goes, and the characters are interesting. So
it's nice to hear that like it still holds up today. I have been playing the new Amnesia, Amnesia Rebirth, which is the second Amnesia game that Frictional made, because A Machine for Pigs was made by
the Chinese Room.
The Chinese Room. There we go.
Makers of Dear Esther.
Yeah.
And Everybody's Gone to the Rapture.
Which was more... A Machine for Pigs was more in the style of like Dear Esther or Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, as opposed to... style. Yeah, like... Yeah, I haven't played it, so I can't speak.
My understanding
is it's not very much, like very few puzzles, if any, and stuff like that.
There's a couple, and there's like one enemy encounter, and the enemy encounter is pretty tame. It's not like nearly as scary as the stuff in Dark Descent.
Yeah. Whereas Amnesia Rebirth, I'm not super far in. I'm maybe like 2 hours. I'm not sure. The Epic Games Store does not give you an hour count, as far as I know.
It does on the library tab.
Oh yeah, okay. I've played 1 hour, 43 minutes, 34 seconds. Okay, so I've played almost 2 hours, hour and a half, and up until just before this podcast, I was thinking, okay, maybe this is a bit more like Soma, or and Soma even has like some enemy stuff, but then they were like, okay, we're gonna make it so you can kind of just get rid of that, because it's stopping people from like experiencing the story. Like you can have like a scary atmosphere or like spooky atmosphere, but not have like dread and like death as part of it.
I played most of Soma. I never got quite around to finishing it, but the enemy stuff in Soma is really good. I think it's better than Dark Descent.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's an evolution too, so it makes sense.
Yes, but, it just like they kind of came back and went, okay, we're gonna make it so if you choose, you can just take that out because it's limiting people from seeing our story. And I wasn't so sure what the kind of experience of Amnesia Rebirth was, because like I said earlier, I had no idea this game even existed until this month. And for the first like hour or so, hour and a half, hour 15 minutes, it's pretty like straightforward. A lot of just like basically going through hallways and with like spooky atmosphere and some like supernatural stuff going on. And you know, your memory is kind of coming back to you because, hey, when the game's called Amnesia, your character probably has amnesia. The bold move, taking one of the most common tropes in storytelling and just making it the name of your thing. So yeah, you're a woman. I cannot remember her name right now. In the desert of Algeria, which is where the artifact, the orb of Amnesia 1 comes from, as Pat reminded me earlier today. And there's a lot of spooky stuff going on with like portals, and you've got a weird bracelet, and you're like going to some like other world through these portals and like in and out. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. And so one of the things I thought was there was not going to be like a lot of monster interactions or puzzles based on like my first hour. But then the last bit I just played is there have been more monsters and puzzles in the section I've encountered. They have not been as obtuse as the Amnesia Dark Descent puzzles. They're a little more just straightforward. Maybe not super like easy to execute on. Like I had to drag a board around and like position it just so, and that was a little obnoxious just because of the way it controls. But for the like, it wasn't super like impossible. But yeah, I'm very interested to see where this goes because they've been telling good stories. Soma is maybe the best exploration of the themes it explores that I've experienced in media, even without finishing it. Like I think just the way it approaches things is really good. So I want to see where they go with.
For those who don't know, that theme is probably what, AI, I guess.
AI and just like human
consciousness, like transhumanism to a degree.
Yeah, like stuff that like Nier Automata investigates with like personhood, and there's differences there with the way they approach it, but like I think
Soma is extraordinarily dark.
Whereas
Nier's
Nier,
hopeful.
I mean and like how they get to the parts they're getting at, but they're approaching like AI and sentience and humanity in ways.
The reason I stopped playing Soma was because I was playing it at a time when I was experiencing some depression, and it was clear the direction the story was going was not going to be a positive one. And I kind of had to step away from it because it was like starting to make me upset just because of how crushing it is.
Existential.
Yes, it is very much in a like, I don't want to think about this right now because I'm already depressed, and this is making me really like making it harder for me to go to sleep at night, basically, because of the questions that it's asking and the answers that it is giving you for those questions. but it's really good.
Yeah, like I mean, it's terrible to like feel like that, but also how incredible that we can say that about a game.
Oh yes, I mean that like, none of that is meant as criticism of it.
Yeah.
It is so good at delivering that, and I think I want to go back and play it now. I think it would be fun to play with kind of with my partner, and you know, we're both in a better, I mean, not the best place because we're cooped up in a pandemic and have experienced a lot of loss over the last few months and et cetera, but I'm in a place that is different. I'm not I have a lot of hope in my heart right now. So I don't think it would be crushing for me to play it the way that it was when it came out. I was in a place of like not feeling like I had much to be excited or happy about. So that's not a good frame of mind to play it in.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm interested to see where Amnesia Rebirth goes, because so far I have no idea what it's going to do. I'm like, I guess like an eighth of the way through the game, or a quarter of the way through the game maybe, but it's not super long, but it's interesting and deals with like kind of family stuff and like family dynamic.
It does,
but where that ultimately goes, I have no idea.
Yeah, I watched a friend play it, and I think they're further than you. It was probably like 2.5 hours in or something. And it's interesting. And for you as a question, would you say that the puzzles are less obtuse than the Dark Descent, like just for you?
I mean, I found a puzzle, and like I've only found one puzzle, I would say. Like maybe I'm on my second puzzle, but it's like I've got to figure out how to get into this room, and I needed to figure out how to like get up a floor and like use an elevator. And next to the elevator was like this instruction thing. I was like, oh, you need X and Z. And then I found X, and then I was like, okay, wait, I need Z. And then I like looked over to the left. I was like, oh, there's Z. And then I just, did the thing. I was like, okay, that's that. But also that was the first time I like really encountered enemies. And so I was like, they were doing a lot of kind of jump scare stuff. So I don't think like I'm actually in any danger, but it's still like, I don't know if I can trust the game, because I don't know what they're doing, and they're doing enough to like keep you on your toes and like present new enemies, but I feel like it's just kind of a false hey, we're just trying to scare you right now. We're not, you're safe, but we just want to like spook you a little bit and like let you know what's coming.
From what I understand, you may have encountered it. This is one of the mechanical spoilers I'm kind of trying to avoid, but the way that that Dark Descent handles death is just like you go back to a checkpoint. And from what I understand, dying in Rebirth is a little bit more interesting and developed. Not that it's like some radical new groundbreaking like thing, but I'm interested to play it without a guide with that in mind. The main reason I'm using a guide for Dark Descent is not to not get scared. It's because I don't want to replay sections over and over again. So playing Rebirth though, I don't mind that as much because it's a new game and I like kind of want to see it from that perspective.
Yeah. So I think it's hard for me to say because I don't know that I've died, but I think that the game kind of hints at that through like the early progression, and it kind of gives you that idea that like maybe death isn't the end, and like things will keep going, but I'm not sure how that manifests because everything's been pretty linear up till now. So I'm not sure how that'll manifest in like, say I died in the section I'm at. I don't know what would happen because it's a little bit more of a kind of like the kitchen area or something where it's a lot of corridors with rooms that you're going into and doors you're unlocking and stuff like that. So I don't know what that'll be like.
Patrick Klepek implied that he played a lot of his review is really good and it's very non-spoilery if you're interested. And he played a lot of it, like the early sections, thinking like not having the best time, thinking like, this is just like the first game, this sucks. And then that the mechanics surrounding death made it a lot more palatable in 2020 than the original game, than Dark Descent did, because I died once in Dark Descent so far. I think I died twice, but one time it was just because I was like kind of goofing around showing the game to my partner, and an enemy was there, and I was like, just fucking kill me, and just kind of like ran at him.
Monster, because I'll suck my dick.
Yeah, the enemies in Dark Descent are still very spooky. They're stalking you and around corners and stuff, but when you get them like full view, it's not very scary. Once you get over the initial shock of like, oh, there's an enemy there,
they look kind of goofy.
Yeah, their models have not aged super well. Anyway, the one time that I died when I was actually trying to progress, I had the item I needed. I had picked up an item and I had the item that I needed, and I was back at the beginning of the area. So it wasn't the worst, but I wouldn't want to replay the sections over and over again. And it sounds like Rebirth has an interesting way of handling that based on what Klepek was saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that actually looks like. The part I'm at is more, like I said, it seems more scripted. And it seems more like we're introducing you to the creatures or whatever, or the creature. A lot of jump scares, but nothing. I don't think I'm in danger yet.
Would you say it earns its jump scares? Because that's something about Dark Descent that I think it does a good job with.
I don't think they're there to be cheap, like, oh, we just want to scare you. I think it is there to like give you the sense of like, oh, you do not know, like something scary is going on here, because they're not just like, it's more you see something going across, like, what the hell is that? Cool. And there have been some like, this thing just jumped up against a window that I'm next to and it screamed, and then it like went away. But those are more like
some of that builds atmosphere in a way that's fun and cool. Like, like the infamous dogs bursting through the window in the first Resident Evil. That's a good jump scare, because it's like, it's using the tension that it's building, and it's sort of a release valve to an extent. Like Until Dawn is incredible in the way that it handles jump scares, which so it's not that I don't think that jump scares can be delivered in a way that's just fun, but one of the things that Dark Descent does that's really good is it'll give you a jump scare that doesn't present immediate danger. It'll be like a bellow or something, or like just like a noise that sounds far off, that's very ominous, and it scares you because it's surprising, but then also it instills some dread as well. And I like that about the way that it uses jump scares quite a lot.
I've not had like, this game does dread well, and I think they created the character responds to it and acts terrified well. I can't remember if just Daniel and Dark Descent, how much he reacts to what's going on around him.
It's pretty good. I mean, his breathing is really good. That's the thing he does, is he does like the like it's that the actor that portrays him has really good ability to breathe in a scared way. And as someone who has, again, like, in the past, I was much less skeptical of supernatural phenomenon, and been in situations where I thought things were happening and got very scared. I would say that it's a pretty good, like, they do a good job of portraying that. But I've heard it's even better in Rebirth.
Yeah, it's like the character, it responds in a believable way, I think, which is just going, fuck.
Yeah.
Or, stuff like that, where like, oh, there is where the fuck am I? And, stuff like that, where I'm like, that's what I'd say in this situation, which is very funny and like relatable for the first time ever in a horror game, kind of.
There's something about the character that I'm not going to spoil, because I just checked the Steam page and they don't say it. It's kind of been all over some of the buzz and marketing, but the character is one of the kind of facts about her situation, I'll say, which I think probably makes it pretty obvious if you've been playing it. Although I guess maybe they haven't gone into it yet, Andre, where you are, because I don't know how early they talk about it, but
does it have anything to do with the name of the game?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That is, from what I have heard, handled in a way that has not been handled this well in games before.
Okay. We need to talk about this because I just want to say this. So
it's minor spoiler.
So minor. This is like you get this like an hour into the game. The character is pregnant. And you have a button to check on the baby. Where you look down and like you hold your stomach and you hear the heartbeat of your baby. I don't know what like significance that has to gameplay yet, if any, or if it's just like, is it like a Death Stranding rock the baby type thing? And that, that has gameplay significance, but that was just okay.
I think it helps your fear level. I don't think that's an enormous spoiler.
I'm not
don't know for sure. I haven't played
possibly.
it yet.
That would make sense.
I think it's like calming, so it helps you bring your fear down a little bit. But from what I've heard, like again, most of this has come from Patrick Klepek because I've kind of avoided a lot of other coverage. But he seemed to indicate that it handles that really well. And as a parent of 2 young children, I think he probably, he's not a woman, so he can't he can't give that perspective, but observationally at least it sounds like, my point is it doesn't sound like they do anything super fucking gross with that. And so that's encouraging to me because I think that's an interesting, playing a pregnant woman in a horror game is something that I go, oh no, this could go bad, but I also find a very interesting concept, so I'm excited about that.
There are some definite things where I'm like, this is not good for you. That should not have happened to you.
I'm not necessarily saying, I don't get the impression, I don't really have an impression one way or other as to whether or not things are just normal about that pregnancy as time goes on. So I'm not trying to say that I think it, but it doesn't like cast her as some kind of like victim or something. It's not, it doesn't do the thing that a lot of media does with pregnant women.
It's a lot of like, oh, you should not have fallen down this like deep cave hole and like slid for 20 meters, and got bounced around. But this does not seem healthy. It'll be, I am curious to see how they handle that. Because it's the first time I've seen like kind of this portrayal. Her name is Tazzy Trianon. I don't know.
I also think it's funny when if you haven't played Amnesia: The Dark Descent in a long time. I don't think this is a spoiler for either game at all. But there's some memory, ironically, there's some memory stuff with like remembering the story of the first game. You were kind of like, I don't think it's really connected to the first game. And I was like, well, the notes in the first game talk about Algeria all the fucking time, which is where Rebirth takes place, which is revealed like right off the bat.
What is the date? Are there dates on anything in Dark Descent? There must be.
Totally. It's like the 1840s.
Okay, this is like 1930s, like 37.
Yeah. The time is definitely passed.
Way
for sure.
later.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's part of why Daniel doesn't have like guns and shit in Dark Descent, is because the guns suck. So even though he's like it makes sense in this game, your circumstances are such that you might not, you just don't have them. Daniel could totally have brought guns to this castle, but they're shitty guns. So why?
Yeah. Well, that's Amnesia, and I don't know, next week I intend to play at least one more spooky game, because the new Dark Pictures anthology game will be out, and I'm so excited for it.
We didn't play Man of Medan. I think it's on Game Pass still. So
if you get it on Steam, you do get like a buddy thing. But I did you say that?
I don't think we're going to play.
Wouldn't want to play the co-op.
She might like doing that at some point. I think we would rather just sit together on the couch and play. The way we played Until Dawn, it was kind of one of those like early things we did as a couple. That was like, like one of those sort of formative experiences for us, I guess, in our relationship. So I think we would probably just want to sit on the couch together and play Man of Medan. And sort of, I drove when we played Until Dawn because she had done it before, but I could see us passing the controller back and forth a little bit for Man of Medan. But
it's not super long either. But and there's like a B-side playthrough, which is interesting. But So kind of, so like you could drive on one, she could drive on the other. Something. It does not look like it's on Game Pass though.
Yeah, I guess it's not. I think it was at one point and I missed it, but that's okay.
Yeah, you can probably get it for cheap now, but yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So let's see on Steam. How much is Man of Medan? It's $30 right now.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
But you can. It looks like you can get a bundle with the next one for like 17% off on the bundle. So, but there's supposed to be a third.
Cool.
Game
I might wait until the actual.
So.
I might wait on the actual purchase of it to see if they do a sale when the new one comes out.
Yeah,
because it's possible.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's games this week. That means it's time for the news.
News alert. Time for the news. That's our new news thing that I'm going to do.
The news.
The
news.
Kenneth Miller.
News.
Tell me the news.
You snooze, you news.
Oh, I want to snooze.
I want a news. This week, big news in the world of politics with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. Is that right? I can't remember. I'm drunk. Forgive me. And Ilhan Omar played. Is that right? Ilhan? I have not. Yeah. Ilhan. Okay. I have literally never heard her name pronounced. Ilhan Omar played Among Us with some prominent streamers, game streamers, and boy howdy, a whole bunch of people watched that. They did it with the intent of getting people to vote, convincing people to go out, participate in the democratic process, however democratic or undemocratic it may be. And at their peak, I think AOC's stream had over 460,000 people watching at one time, concurrent viewers. Is that correct?
Something around there.
A whole bunch of other people, and that's not including the people watching Pokimane stream or H-Bomber guy, or who else was that? Jacksepticeye. Yeah, all these people.
Corpse Husband.
Everyone's favorite now.
Yeah.
So all these people, a whole bunch of people watching, and it seemed like a real good time. I do not envy the people who had to be grilled by AOC and Ilhan Omar.
Oh my God, yeah.
Just watching those videos, watching AOC particularly in Senate hearings, going after pharmaceutical executives or whoever it is, of Mark Zuckerberg. I do not want to be on the other end of that. I just do not. So it was a great stream. I think the thing that was so cool about it was just seeing how they use that platform to connect with people who maybe there are a lot of people who don't vote, unfortunately. And while I'm certainly not trying to generalize about gamers, I think that there's a lot of younger 18 to 24-year-old people who might really be into streamers like Pokimane and Jacksepticeye and stuff, who just don't get around to it. It's not malicious on their part, but a lot of younger people just don't have that instilled in them that voting is a key part of exercising your rights to vote is a really important thing. So I think it's just awesome that they did that, because it really, I think it means something. I'm sure that they got more people to vote by doing it. That's the hope. They were talking to people from Canada and the UK and stuff like that, asking questions like, what is it like to go to the doctor and not worry about going bankrupt?
Yep.
Yeah. It was a very human stream. It was a very it was personable and relatable, and it made it less I think if you're looking at politics and you're looking at the TV, you're looking at C-SPAN, it's hard to personify the people on the other end of that. It's that you're kind of just watching politics. You're forgetting about the human element, but this was pure human element with the same people, and it was just it was very great in that sense.
I think it was good too to see, you know, I'm of the opinion that everything's political. I think that we have to vote for Joe Biden to get Trump out of office. I'm pretty open and willing to say that out loud, and use a platform to push that. I think a lot of times you see popular streamers, and I'm not going to name anyone in particular because I don't watch their streams regularly, but you see popular streamers kind of not engaging with that part of, they might say, oh, go vote, but they're not necessarily engaging with that part of the political conversation. And I think
a lot of the streamers that were part of this stream were like kind of avoided politics before.
That's what I'm getting at.
And,
yeah. And so I think it's great to say to those communities, even if it loses them some viewers. I mean, in the United States right now, we are in a deep crisis. We're not in a place right now where you can like say like, oh, you don't have to be political. Like, we're in a situation right now where if you are a Trump supporter, you shouldn't really be welcome in fun spaces, period, done. Like that's in years past, that would have felt very harsh to say, but we're currently talking about like really important subjects. And if he wins another 4 years, a lot of people are going to die. So we don't really have the luxury of like avoiding placing ourselves on the political spectrum. And I thought I was really emboldened to see a lot of streamers, even ones who aren't from here and maybe don't have the responsibility to do that, sort of take a side. Because I mean, if you're even appearing on a thing with Ilhan and AOC,
yeah,
then you're showing kind of what side of the equation you're on. And she was not vocal throughout the stream about who to vote for, but early on and kind of at the end, she talked about how we need to vote Trump out of office and vote for Joe Biden and stuff, which is also important for her to say, because while I have a lot of respect and understanding for people who are feel politically disenfranchised, and I would never talk at someone about how they need to vote, I can only share my beliefs. I think there are a lot of young people who are bitter and feel disenfranchised because of that. And I think I would say, if you are the kind of person who another 4 years of Trump isn't going to have as much of a direct effect on, you're not really in a position to like use your vote as like to not vote out of spite, if that makes any sense. I think there are people who have been disenfranchised by the system who I super respect why they want to use their vote in a way that they think is the most impactful for them and their communities. But like, if you're like me, you really should do the right thing here. Or the right thing for you, I think, is to use your vote to get Trump out of office, because a lot of people don't have that luxury. So I think it was good for them to kind of make that clear with their appearances and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it showed, outside of like our current political climate, I think it shows an intense amount of savvy and makes me hopeful for like a new generation of politician that like I can relate to and can relate to me and understands, you know, not like, oh, gamers' rights or anything like that, but like somewhat, seeing young people who are aware of what's going on and how to actually connect, because, you know, looking at fucking Nancy Pelosi and like, oh, here's my giant freezer full of ice cream. Exactly. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, there's a total lack of connection to everyday people that a lot of older politicians have. Even somebody, I mean, I don't think it's in nearly the same way, but even somebody like Bernie Sanders, I don't expect him to know like what it's like to, I don't expect him to know what it's like to climb out of bronze in League of Legends, you know?
Exactly.
Like something about that stream which made it relatable again, was Ilhan, she at one point was stuttering and having issues, and she's like, oh, sorry, I think it's because my Wi-Fi is kind of crappy. And it's like, that's the kind of like just everyday normal thing you want to see from a representative in office.
Yeah. And I think the thing about, you know, it's just like, it's this constant thing I think about, like, they're just games, but they're also not just games. When you understand like cultural context and like what media people are consuming, it helps you understand society better, right? Like AOC playing League of Legends doesn't make her a better politician from a like understanding policy perspective. But when you've interacted with the kind of toxicity that exists in that environment, it does help you understand more about the human condition and where we're at societally. And obviously it's a global game, doesn't necessarily all pertain to US society and politics. Sure. But I think in a lot of cases, I mean, that's a hyper specific example, but I think she understands better how toxic the internet is than somebody like Mitch McConnell, who doesn't fucking know anything about what happens down his street. Even like he lives in a bubble basically and just does things to make people money.
And that's so important now as things like, and the government doing antitrust stuff with Google and Apple and looking at these companies, and you need politicians who understand how the internet works. And because we've seen time and time again with like these hearings from Facebook where we see like these older politicians asking the most asinine, nonsensical questions, and then you see someone like AOC just grilling these people on the most like very direct things that like, you know, the people are like caught off guard. They don't know how to answer. And we need more people with that kind of skill set. And if we can get more people, young people invested and engage in voting and seeing, hey, you can have someone like this in office, we're going to get more of those people across the country and have a more representative, representative democracy. And
we just need people who understand. We need someone who can look at TikTok, for example, and go, wow, this is Chinese company. And go, okay, there's certain concerns that are valid to have about a Chinese company data harvesting via TikTok. There's real issues there. But we need someone who's going to look at it and say, what is this doing socially? Let's look at how we can regulate it, and understands that world rather than just saying, well, shut it down, it's Chinese. And so I think
it needs to be more than a boogeyman.
Yes. And I think we need people who understand that like Riot Games makes a fuckload of money. They make so much money. And so when they sign a deal with a Saudi prince, that's something that politicians in this country should understand and know about and like get the context of like, so I think it's important going forward. And I think it shows that like, and honestly, I mean, I don't like some of the people that she mentioned, but like she talked about how Justin Amash was texting her and saying that he was watching the stream and stuff. So, and he's a libertarian. I don't agree with him. I think he's kind of a dipshit, but in some ways it is cool even to see that there is like it's a point of commonality between younger politicians even too. So, you know, I hope that it continues, and I hope we see more stuff like this. And I hope that we see more politicians coming to Twitch on Twitch viewers' terms rather than trying to just make it another outlet for delivering a stump speech, which is what Bernie and Biden have kind of done so far with it.
Gamers rise up.
Yeah.
So unrelated to the stream itself, and we don't have this written down in our news, but a few days after the stream, a bunch of right-wingy Trump supporters started hacking and DDoSing the Among Us servers. I don't know if you saw that.
God, it's unbelievable how stupid you have to be to. I don't even.
I don't understand. I think it's very stupid. Also,
this is what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't want to.
Dumb. We don't have to give it that much time. It's just extremely dumb.
But I think it reinforces the point though that like if you're listening to this and you live in the United States and you're trying to figure out what to do, we really do. We're past the point of like political niceties and civility and shit like this. It's ridiculous. The stuff that they're putting out there is just fucking stupid, and you really should vote Trump out of office. We really need to do that. My dad told me that he bought almost $600 in groceries the other day because he's concerned because Michigan was rated as a state that has a high probability of militia related violence over the next 3 weeks. Like,
and as someone who is not American, that makes no sense to me. Like
I think it's a little overblown.
Reality.
I don't think that there's going to be militias in the streets shooting at people because I think they're all chicken shit. But you have to be careful. I mean, you have to keep in mind a lot of that stuff.
Where was the militia trying to kidnap the governor of Minnesota?
That's Michigan.
No,
That's Michigan.
Okay,
That's where my family lives. So, and now again, I think a lot of that is, people talking up a big game. I don't think that they may have tried to go through with it. I don't know. Usually militias are pretty incompetent and they're fairly cowardly.
I don't know. Like being from Oregon, where a militia took over
on that list.
Took over like a national wildlife refuge for like a month or more. They'll do shit. It'll be fucking stupid, but they'll do it. And people die in the process.
Yes.
And it's tragic, but like it's just people come from out of state and pull stupid shit, and it's these people are dangerous, and we just need to that's kind of
get
rid of the people emboldening them.
That's kind of what I was gonna say too, is by saying I think they're chicken shit, I still think they're dangerous. I think that Kyle Rittenhouse is a child. I mean, he's a child, and he's a very scared child, but he still shot someone to death. So like you do need to be aware that there are dangerous people out there in those groups. Anyway,
well, let's
politics
keep on
20 minutes.
No, it's not. Because we're not done, because Sony in all their timeliness released a Black Lives Matter theme on the PlayStation Network for free. There's been some discourse around it. It looks fine. So some of the discourse has been about they should the more positive discourse, because I think there's been a lot of shitty discourse like, oh, you support Black Lives Matter, it's a terrorist organization, fuck off, about they should be doing more to support Black creators and like content creators and game developers and et cetera. Who knows what they're doing behind the scenes? They haven't said anything about that stuff, and that's a totally fair criticism. I cannot speak against that.
Yeah, I mean, I would look at your Twitter timeline and look at the people on it that got PS5s for sure. I think Blessing from Kind of Funny got one, and I saw that. Who else was it?
There was a Black woman. I don't remember her name.
You're getting. It's not like they've only been giving them to white people, but it's definitely overwhelmingly
part of that is who are the prominent people in games media too, and that's
part of that is that. But
and it's it's
Sony has a big
chicken or the egg. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Sony could be finding people that are on the come up that are. I mean, there's tons of Black creators that they could be working with. And instead they chose to go with the bigger names, which are bigger names in part because of the privilege that I mean, not that those people have worked hard. I think there's plenty of people who are really nice white people and good white people who are working in the industry, but you know what I mean? I think there's a point of criticism there that kind of ties in directly with
definitely this. And but I think so, yes, all that being said, I think this this definitely stems from the stuff over the summer with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the protests, and Sony made a statement, Microsoft kind of supported their statement, Nintendo made a statement, but that was kind of all we got. But then Sony to come out like 4 or 5 months later with this with the skin, I think my reaction, the white guy in his 20s, what am I to be saying? I think this kind of says to me that they're trying to be like more dedicated to it than just a statement. They want to say, hey, this is still something we're thinking about. Maybe they don't have it perfect right now. Maybe they could have sent the PlayStation 5 to more people, more Black creators, people of color. But this is still this is a statement of purpose, maybe. And, by putting this message out there, they're at least getting a lot of people to tell on themselves. and make themselves, I'm canceling my PS5 pre-order. Yeah, I'm gonna get an Xbox, and my guy, Xbox also supports Black Lives Matter. I'm getting it. At least I got a Switch, Nintendo 2. Guess I'll get an Atari. Nope, they support it too.
Yeah, that whole thing was dumb. But I think for me, with it being months removed from the catalysts and from the actual start of the protest, it makes it feel as though it's not a performative act, or it's not I don't know how to best phrase it, but had they released it within those same 2 weeks, that would have felt pandering or maybe even disingenuous. Whereas I think this far separated, it seems as though it's being approached with a level head, and
we're still thinking about it, and we want to, we're reiterating our support.
So
but they have a lot more to do.
I don't see it as a negative. I think it is easy to be cynical about it and say it's a corporation doing something that maybe is nothing, but at the same time I think it's more positive than negative. It's a net positive, and I think I'm glad they did it.
I think it's ultimately a yes and moment of this is good, but also you have things you need to work on. And I also think that the angle of it's a corporation just kind of doing something, the important part of that to keep in mind is just to always remember that Sony is still trying to make the most money they possibly can. If they thought that it would impact their sales of the PlayStation 5, for example, extremely negatively if they did this, they would not do it. They are not an altruistic organization. They're not out here to do social good. If they were, they would be doing it. So I do think it's important to keep that in mind. At the same time, I think you're right, Alex. I think it's more positive than negative. And I think if it means that 100 people can put this theme on their PlayStation and feel good about that and feel like they're being supported, that even though I still have cynical feelings about Sony as a company and their motivations for doing it, I'm happy for those people. And I think it's a positive for them. And I think the negative here is people who use this as a way to reinforce making PlayStation part of their identity as a person, when PlayStation probably doesn't really care about them on an individual level, just realities of corporatism and capitalism. But I think it's still more positive than good, or positive than negative.
Yeah, there's always going to be times when people weaponize fanboyism. That's what it is. But yeah.
Okay, I think with that we can finally wrap up our politics minute. The 1 minute of politics. Alex, good luck editing that down to the 1 minute allotted.
Yeah, you got a lot of material to work with.
It'll be very concise.
All right. Well, let's see. Okay. I've got 2 stories here that I'm just not even going to touch. I refuse. Life is too short to talk about this bullshit.
I'll give it 20. I'll give it 10 seconds. The Alex Hutchinson thing was extremely stupid, and whatever. Fuck that stuff. That was dumb.
And it's been stupid for that dude has not ever said good stuff, really.
I will say I had a rough week, and it brought me a lot of joy for the first time over the week to watch everyone kick the shit out of this guy on Twitter. Just mercilessly just murk this guy.
That's all we really need to give it, though.
By the way, I wanted to just find in my Twitter, it was Janet Garcia that did receive a PlayStation 5. So that was the person that I was thinking of.
Okay.
In addition to Blessing.
I think there was someone else, but maybe not. I don't know.
It's very possible. I just was looking at my timeline. People.
Yeah. All right. So that's that. Let's see. We got some Devolver Digital news. Croteam, creators of Serious Sam and the Talos Principle, are now part of Devolver Digital officially. They've been absorbed, merged, bought.
That part's not entirely clear, but Also, I feel like Croteam hasn't done anything particularly great. You know,
They just put out the new Serious Sam.
Sounds not very good.
That doesn't sound very good.
Yeah.
Talos Principle is supposed to be very good.
It is good. I like Talos Principle.
I tried to get into it, and there's something about the movement in that game that just doesn't click with me. It's
the puzzles
silly.
are good,
yeah. It's a silly reasoning. It's just I bounced off it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's so many games. Like, if you don't like moving around, I think that's fair enough.
I'm just saying because I gushed about Phasmophobia for
that's true.
And the movement in that game is very muddy and slow.
But you can't tell the puzzle to suck your dick.
Exactly. I mean, you can, but it
doesn't respond.
It won't respond with running at you with a cleaver. So
that's not what you're supposed to use. All right, so that's Croteam.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they'll do something cool, but whatever.
Maybe. Yeah. You know what? I would say this is better than Croteam going like, oh crap, we made a bad Serious Sam game. Guess we have to close down and lay everyone off. So if Devolver can buy or kind of absorb them, and
they have made good games
them to make good stuff, then that's great.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We got. Next on the list is Frost Giant Studios, which is some ex-Blizzard folks who worked on StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3 are making a new RTS game. Is this part of that dream, the thing from the previous weeks where like Mike Morheim, is that who it is? I think it's
actually a separate thing. I think this one is actually, I think it's like backed by Riot to an extent.
What? Riot doesn't make games.
I don't. It seems like every 6 months, ex-Blizzard devs are starting a studio to make something. Has anything ever come out of one of those efforts that hasn't ultimately been disappointing?
I think the Blizzard Exodus has only really been a thing within like the past 6 months to a year.
Torchlight was made by ex-Blizzard people, like the original.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's
but
been
that's I mean this more recent one.
Yeah,
I Blizzard Torchlight is
old cyclical. Torchlight is a great game too, the original one. So
apparently
there you go. Answered
not
my
so
own.
Great.
No, it's garbage. But the first one, very good. But like, I just am thinking about like, there was Torchlight, there was Marvel Heroes, which was a good game, but then ultimately had kind of a sad ending. And there was the space game, the space trucking game, Rebel Galaxy, which the first one was fine, and I thought the newer one was really disappointing. So it just seems like there's so frequently like Blizzard folks going to work on something, and then it's like it's meh to disappointing.
Well, that's games, but
it looks like they are
because a lot of them are like
backed by Riot. So
hopefully it'll be good.
Like StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3 are not the most modern games, so. And like, not to say like, oh, they're going to make an old ass game or something, but what does it mean in 2020 or 2022 or whenever that game comes out to be an RTS made by people with that pedigree? What does that look like? Mm-hmm. Is it, if it's backed by Riot, is it going to be a League of Legends RTS?
That would be very funny. They're invested. Riot is an investor. They don't own them. So
no, that's what I mean by backed by.
Yeah. I was just clarifying.
Yeah, for sure.
It looks like one of the studio heads is Tim Campbell, who worked on Wasteland 3 as well, former game director of Wasteland 3. So
yeah, it could be cool. I don't know. We're not going to see for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
but.
Well, we'll see. All right, our next news story. Where'd my list go? Let's see. Over in a Quibi is done. It's over. Why is this here? Who put this here? This is not. There were no very limited amount. There was a very limited amount of gaming content, which ended far before Quibi was deemed not sustainable.
Yeah.
Apparently, the CEO, God, the CEO played like a song from Trolls 2. It was like told people like, go listen to this song from Trolls 2 to pick up your spirits after telling everyone they were laid off.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
I found out,
I think was the name of the song or something.
Not to, we don't have to go back to politics minute, but the two reasons that I heard about Quibi in the past week were first that the Joe Biden campaign was considering the CEO of Quibi for a cabinet position, and then second that Quibi was going out of business.
Sick.
And guess what? That's because he got the cabinet position.
Yeah, who knows?
That's why, for sure.
I mean, it's a little early to make that decision.
Well, you missed I was going to say the last part is Joe Biden loses and Quibi's done for. It's.
But yeah, the only reason that's on there is because we had one person on this podcast who was very excited about Quibi.
I mean, I adore Sam, and I would never want to talk actual shit about Sam behind his back because I love the man, but Sam does kind of get excited about any new media initiative from any service or anything. So it wasn't particularly surprising that Sam was excited about Quibi.
That thing seemed like it was a dud from the start, though. So
I thought it was a dumb idea from the word go.
So the idea of some of the show ideas, like we're going to just shoot a food at you out of a cannon, and then wearing a blindfold, you have to figure out what it is, and then recreate it. That's the exact kind of shit I live for. Shows with dumb gimmicks, but also. Apparently part of the reason they did like 10-minute or 11-minute like episodes was so they could get around SAG-AFTRA or like union rates, because if it's less than like X amount of time, then it's like they don't have to pay union rates. Yeah. So it's stupid. It is shitty. So rest in piss.
It is ironic.
Sorry to all the people who worked very hard and their livelihood relied on that, but fuck the CEO.
It is very ironic. I literally read the news about Quibi the other day, got up and made lunch, and then was like, because I'm doing writing heavy stuff for work, so I can't really eat and write. And so I was like, I wish I had a like 10-minute episode of something to watch while I eat my lunch.
YouTube, baby.
But there's nothing. I was like, I don't know what I want. I ended up watching a Linus Tech Tips video, and it was far better than any experience I would have had on Quibi. But no offense to people like Ron Funches, who's very funny. But it was funny because like my initial moment was like, actually, I've found a time when I wish Quibi was good.
Quibi, we hardly knew ye because you weren't worth knowing. Let's see. I think we got our first glimpse of Tom Holland as Nathan Drake.
Oh yeah, we did
the Nathan Drake movie. And no half tuck. How do we feel about the no half tuck?
Could not care less.
All right.
I mean, I'm also not an Uncharted fan, but he seems like he looks like Nathan Drake from those games, but younger and less jacked. But whatever, it seems fine.
No one is as jacked as Nolan North.
True.
The picture of Nolan North and Tom Holland on set was kind of cute. That was funny.
It was, and Nolan North has gotten gray.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
I think it happened at some point during the making of the Avengers game.
He barely had to work. It's not like it was a hard thing to like make. No, I don't know.
I will say
the most work he did was that video where he said that Iron Man wears a mask.
That's a good video.
God, the most work he put in for that.
Funny. That's so funny. The thing I need someone to do, I have not yet had a conversation where someone has convinced me that an Uncharted movie is worth making. So yeah, I mean, all the best to Tom Holland, but I don't understand why that film was ever greenlit in the first place, and I sure shit don't understand why they're still making it now.
Because so you can watch it, money, and lots of people will go buy it, and yeah.
So it will be contrasted and compared with Tomb Raider in a film class.
Yeah,
I missed what you said. I froze.
I was making fun of your film class.
Connection is, yeah, so it's okay.
You're just like,
in 5 years, someone will watch Tom Holland and that versus, and they'll compare it to Mila Jovovich in Monster Hunter. Compare gender represent.
We had a ghost named Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, we did. We're just Thomas Anderson. Yeah,
Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, we had like 3 ghosts named like something Brown. So like the Brown family just dying all over the place.
Rip.
Y'all talked about how the Avengers is delayed last time. I can't even tell what time. Stories came out.
Yeah, I think maybe. I don't know.
I think we did, but
they're
delaying the console version of the next gen.
At some point, the next gen update is getting delayed, but it probably needs it. But I feel like that. Man, I don't even know. What is time?
If you were waiting to play the campaign of Avengers because you think it runs like shit on your PS4 and would like it to run less like shit, I think you could still, there's a case for wanting to play it on PS5, but the end game in that game is real bad. So there's no reason really to want to keep pushing it on a new console. They have a lot of work to do to make that game worth playing outside of the campaign.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think far under our usual runtime. I think we can finally wrap it up.
You missed 2 news stories.
Yeah, you did miss 2 news stories.
I refuse.
I will say there's one.
One is like, it's not even both. Neither of these news stories is worth discussing. Like, what is it even like?
What I will say that is worth, one thing I'll say it's worth it is, one of the designers of Fallout New Vegas is streaming this now retro game this weekend for charity. Josh Sawyer, his streams are super enjoyable. He's my partner and I's favorite streamer. And he's streaming his mod that he made for New Vegas to play personally. Like, he changed the settings on a lot of stuff so that it would be more fun for him personally to play the game that he worked on. He's using that mod and streaming for charity. So go check him out on Twitch this weekend.
Yeah, and the modding community group put out Fallout 4 New Vegas just a couple days ago in celebration.
Is it actually out, or is it just
teased? I think
they just put out.
I thought it was out. My bad.
Either way, that looks incredible, and
it looks really good.
Real cool. I never played through New Vegas because I got really sick of the people who pushed that game really hard and did the thing that I don't really do now, but I used to do, where I was like, if you keep telling me to play this thing, I'm going to do the opposite and specifically never touch it. So I've started that game a few times, but I've never played it for more than a few hours. So maybe I'll check that mod out at some point if it's really a faithful recreation of the original game's stuff.
Seems cool. And yeah, also Super Meat Boy is now 10 years old. It's a retro game. It's weird.
Super Meat Boy forever.
Jeff Grubb is not correct. 10 years is not how long it takes for a game to become retro. It's 20 years minimum. Look, they started playing Nirvana on classic rock stations in the early 2010s.
That's classic rock, not retro rock.
Yeah, it's same diff.
I think our last news story is the most important news story.
Talk to the hand. This is the face. Don't want to hear it.
Is that with regards to our last news story?
For episode 144 of the Gaming Fyx podcast on October 24th, 2020.
People need to know.
I've been your host, Andre Cole, aka your partner's favorite word they can't remember the definition of.
Sorry.
You can find me on Twitter at Coolslaw, COOLSL4W. And you can find the podcast on Twitter at Fyx Podcasts, or on the internet at fyx.space or podchaser.com/gamingfyx, where you can leave us a review, or iTunes, or whatever podcast platform of choice you use that offers the ability to review a podcast. We really appreciate it. Pat, where can people find you?
It's like The Ring. You gotta like, you don't want to spread it around. That's why we can't talk about that news story. You can find me at PJC Plays. I've kind of started to promote it a little more. I'm doing a stream for Extra Life in 2 weeks on November 7th. That's coming right up. It should be a fun stream because I'm gonna fly around the world. I haven't practiced as much as I should have, but it'll be fine. I know how to fly planes. It'll be fun because it's going to be chilled out. Hopefully the format's basically going to be park it in the Discord. In our Fyx Discord, we'll get the link out to some people, some friends of the show. And anyone who wants to come out can hang out, can just come and drop into the Discord channel and chat while we fly around the world. It'll be a nice break from your other streams that you're watching that weekend. It's probably not going to be a stream that anyone wants to sit and watch for hours, but it'll be a fun one to flip to and check in on.
Yeah, and I believe at least some of us from the Fyx podcast will be checking in to say hi and see what's up.
Depending on how things are going, if like, I don't know, there's stuff I can do while flying a plane that
maybe we can get in like a Jackbox
exactly
like at the same time.
Play some Jackbox or some Among Us or something like that if there's interest and if there's time to do it.
All right. And Alex, where can people find you? Don't you dare say it.
It doesn't even look like a pie. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's not a pie.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. But it's not a pie.
I need a
mod. They cut it open and it just looks like turd.
I need a mod.
Stay wet, gamers.
For Phasmophobia that just has Wario as a ghost and after he fucking died.
Oh yes.
And he just goes, "Oh my God," into your ears as the jump scare.
Have those videos still been going out?
I don't know. I haven't checked in on I think I came to it a long time after it was already done.
Andre looks like
he's going to
die.
I figured that would be kind of the fade out, like just
no. Well, I thought it was going to be fade out on the pie, but then you started talking about Wario, and then it just all. Yeah.
Look, no one's forcing you to be on this podcast.
I just, stay wet, gamers means the podcast is ending.
You can't make that statement because you're just inviting more shit like this to happen.
We'll be back next week with another episode of Gaming Fyx Podcasts.
Bound to be
Rain and shine. And MASH.
Jeff's going to be on next week.
MASH?
Bangers and MASH, baby.
Oh, Bangers. I thought you were talking about the Korean War hospital television program.
I started thinking about the theme from MASH, but then the theme from Law and Order played in my head for some reason. Don't know why that is.
Imagine Alan Alda, but as one of the lawyers.
Sure. Be good casting. I had to learn to play the theme from MASH for a guitar class, jazz guitar. The podcast is over. This is just talking.
I don't think it is. No, it's not. I need to go to bed. I don't think the podcast is over.
I had to learn to play the theme from MASH for a jazz guitar class, and I had to write a solo to play in the middle of it, and it was a lot of fun. I like the theme from MASH a lot.
Painless?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyway. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.